let's move on to a weaken question, closely related to flaw in the sense that both of them are geared toward identifying what is problematic about the argument. What are its errors? What causes it to not completely have its conclusion substantiated or supported by the evidence? But although flaw questions, like we've just seen, will describe the flaw and will kind of fall into certain categories of flaws, weaken questions will throw a particular dart at the argument. It's kind of like a lawyer bringing forth a new piece of evidence in the midst of a trial. The judge has to determine, is this relevant and does it support the lawyer's case, you might say. But in this case, is it relevant? Does it weaken, not strengthen, the author's claim? We are in great shape to address this because weaken questions become more straightforward when there is an explanation argument at hand, meaning there's some phenomenon, something has taken place, there's no debate about that, but the conclusion is about why it happened. So if we can simply establish some alternative, plausible explanation, we have our weakener. We can go into the choices looking very specifically for what we have in mind. We can say, I don't know what the specifics exactly are going to be, but right answer, simply give me some plausible alternative, something that makes sense as an alternative to the idea of the stimulus programs being responsible. Something else did the job of causing the economy to recover. Well, we get it right away. Once again, the right answer is in pink. Notice that choice A says it gives it at the right time, just before the stimulus was put into effect. So we need it to happen at the right time, but there was another economic action, you might say. The Fed did something here in an effort to kickstart the economy. Now here's something very important, because I hear this from students often. They'll say in response to a question like this, well, that's just an effort to kickstart the economy. That doesn't prove that it actually did, that what the Fed did actually worked. And that's an important objection to think about and to realize that weakening an argument is not the same as disproving it. You don't have to feel like, as a result of this answer, the argument couldn't possibly work. You only have to conclude that as a result of this choice, the argument is less likely to be true. That's what we need from the answer, and that's what this answer gives us. Let's go through the other answers, starting with choice B, which is the wrong answer I see students choose most frequently in this particular case. They often choose choice B because they think, oh, well, the economic downturn was changing anyway. Wouldn't that weaken the argument? There's a couple of problems with that. One is that we want the one that most seriously weakens. That implies we actually want a more bold answer for weaken questions. Weaken questions do tend more toward the bold side. We want strong language. Level off slightly is not very strong. But also notice that choice B isn't really addressing an alternate cause. It doesn't take away the possibility or even the likelihood that the stimulus is what really had a positive effect on the economy. And it also doesn't show that the recession was actually over. It just says level off slightly. It could still have been in recession with the economy, the GDP, you might say, going down. So it's not B. We have some others that are wrong for different reasons. Choice C is way too modest and general. The author would say, well, so what? I'm not saying that they always lead to recovery. But to say that they do not always does nothing to the claim that it could have in this case. Too modest, doesn't pack enough punch for us. Choice D, I would say, is too hypothetical. Notice the hypothetical language. Like, if this were true, had the economy not been in recession, would likely. We're asking what actually happened in this case and what the cause and effect was. That's way too hypothetical to really address an actual situation. And finally, although again, sometimes an apples to apples comparison with, let's say, a different country can be helpful, it's not going to be the strongest weakener to say, well, countrywide didn't have the same effect. We don't know a lot of things about countrywide. There might be any number of reasons why their stimulus program didn't work. That's not as good an answer as A, to weaken the argument, because it just leaves way too many questions unanswered. It's not relevant enough to talk about what happened in this particular country in this particular case. Choice A is much better.